It's Halloween, and in order to appear festive and timely, I've compiled a list of the top 10 spooky levels in games. No survival horror games because I could just say whole thing's spooky and move on. I tried to pick games you don't typically associate with the creep vibe. As a result, none of them are actually scary, but hey, if you wanted to be scared, you'd go play Silent Hill 3 in the dark when you were 12 years old. At number 10, the first thing I want to talk about today, Ghost of Tsushima. Legends would have been too easy and isn't really one mission or level, so for this list I've decided to go with Whispers in the Woods. This mission starts out like any other. You're told of a problem that needs to have its arms cut off and you embark to deal with it the only way you know how. But this one's a bit different. Your enemy is supposedly a forest full of murderous spirits. As you progress through the torchlit path, you slowly begin to discover clues that lead you to evidence of a murder. Alright, a couple murders. Alright, more than a couple murders. In either a subversion or a confirmation of our assumptions as the player, we then hear a huddled group of bandits bragging about their part in the killings. And spreading of the Scooby-Doo-like ghost story that brought us here.
But worth it to have this place all to ourselves.
Thankfully, in this world, the protagonist is a headshot-slinging, throat-slashing maniac more than capable of delivering the horrific justice required. Don't you just love a happy ending? Next at 9th place is Halloween Town from Kingdom Hearts. I know it's not actually creepy or maybe even all that spooky, but it fits with the whole Halloween thing so well. Besides, the only legitimately spooky thing in that game is the first time you have to fight Sephiroth. Damn. That's okay, you'll probably get him next time. I picked Halloween Town partially so that I would have an excuse to play and then talk about Kingdom Hearts, but also because the environment, the music, and enemies all ooze so much of that glowing green October night atmosphere we need this time of year. The boys even have costumes just for this world. So, that exists. Now for number 8, we get super spooky with Far Cry 5. Ooh, vague, impotent political metaphors. Ooh. Specifically, I wanted to talk about Faith's region, wherein the aforementioned Chica in charge seems to appear out of thin air, routinely haunting and terrifying the player character. And she isn't just frightening because she's a pretty lady. Her primary weapon is a powerful drug referred to as the Bliss. Exactly as the name sounds, the Bliss just sort of makes you happy, and see things in a far more pleasant light. It also makes you a zombie, but that doesn't seem so bad. Far Cry 5 tries on several occasions to make the player feel unsettled and out of control, but I never felt that as strongly as I did in Faith's region. As soon as I realized there was a person with genjutsu in this game, I wanted out. But now I see it as my personal mission to liberate every Bliss zombie from control. One comically large knife to the brain at a time. Speaking of objects interacting violently with brains, the next level I want to talk about comes from Bioshock. And in this case, when I say level, I really mean the entire intro section. As I'm sure anyone watching this already knows, Bioshock begins with a plane crash, a lighthouse, and only one way forward. Down. As you descend, you're shown a beautiful city, made to listen to some very creepy tunes, and most importantly of all, you're absolutely powerless. You have no weapon. Pressing the melee button does nothing, even if the game had explained the controls to you, which, by the way, it hasn't. Being put in the dark and then being accosted by weird hook hands monster people with no way to defend yourself is outstanding enough, but we very shortly after take it one step further, introducing us as early as possible not only to the very human slicers, but the exceptionally inhuman Big Daddy, presenting the player with a real sense of opposition and genuine danger. Combine that with the underwater utopia turned aquarium of doom aesthetic, and you've got for one hell of an opening. Next, we venture north to a mysterious land full of monsters and magic. No, not Canada, we're just playing Skyrim again. Somewhere in their journey, the Dragonborn learns of a young boy, Aventus Aretino, who's trying to contact an organization of assassins. Being the conqueror of all quests, no matter how small and menial, the Dragonborn makes their way to Windhelm, maybe solves a murder, and then picks the lock to the supposedly haunted Aretino house. Inside, we see that Aventus has already performed the Black Sacrament, the ritual necessary to contact the Dark Brotherhood, his intention being to have them kill an abusive old woman who owns an orphanage somewhere. However, instead of a shadowy, hooded figure, he got the main character of an Elder Scrolls game. That's like getting a pizza delivered to your house by Batman. Like, surely someone less qualified could do this job. Needless to say, we do it, we move on with our lives, and some point thereafter receive an ominous message. Yikes. And sure enough, the next time you sleep, you wake up in a shack in the middle of a foggy swamp. Turns out the Brotherhood isn't mad, and you can join them if you want to. The only catch is, you have to commit murder in cold blood. Oh. You, only had to kill one of them. I guess a lot of things in Skyrim are sort of spooky, and you could argue other moments in the game fit the Halloween thing better, but inarguably, in Halo Combat Evolved, there's only one right answer. This story starts off with Cortana warning the chief that Captain Keyes is in grave danger.
Keys? What do
The
we...
weapons cache he's looking for, it's not really... We can't let him get inside.
The captain hasn't been heard from in almost an entire day, so we, being an unstoppable green killing machine, set off to find and rescue him. Upon arrival, as you soak in the surroundings, you probably love the swamp world aesthetic. If you're like me, you also love that it's raining and that combat is remarkably easy. There are few if any enemies, and they don't seem to be in the best of shape. Also, look at how creepy this is in classic mode. The remaster is beautiful, but something about those low-res polygons is haunting as shit. Anyway, we trudge through the swamp, eventually finding whatever it is Keyes seems to have come here to find. Inside, we discover that much of the enemy force has already been killed, and in rather brutal fashion. You then come across this traumatized individual, and accidentally shoot him in the face. There's a large broken glass case behind him, and the surrounding area is filled with signs of battle. Continuing onward, we find the rest of the man's team, or what's left of them anyway. Finally, thanks to a video recording from inside the helmets of one of the fallen soldiers, we're able to see the team's last living moments, and glimpse the horror that splattered them all over the ground so thoroughly.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Boy, you always got a bad feeling about something.
What is it, Loco? Get back here, Marine! That's an order!
This is a fantastic introduction to the Flood, and more importantly, it's a great way to break up the monotony of just shooting everything that moves. That being said, you sort of just start shooting everything that moves. And speaking of excessive gunfire, MGS5 has a pretty spooky opening as well. I put it on this list for very similar reasons to the Bioshock opening earlier. You once again don't know the controls, and even if you did, it wouldn't matter. The only thing you can do is press forward on the joystick for around 10 minutes, and you have no weapon, and no idea what the hell's going on. The player wakes up in a hospital bed, witnesses a bunch of murders, and is almost strangled by a pretty lady before being saved by Kiefer Sutherland. It's quickly apparent that the hospital is under attack by some kind of paramilitary force, and you need to escape without being completely perforated. Things are going as well as they can given the situation, until this happens.
What the hell is that? Something's coming.
After being attacked by Satan, you continue attempting evasion both of the military force, sanitizing patients via lead projectiles to the brain region, and the terrifying relentless onslaught of the man on fire. This all culminates in gore I cannot show you in a YouTube video, an unreasonable body count, terrified sprinting, an ambulance chase, and a flying whale. If the content of this level itself doesn't creep you out, it'll confuse you enough that it doesn't matter. And we made it to the top 3! Just to reiterate, I'm not taking placement on the list too seriously, especially with these last few. Any of them could easily have been number 1. They're all fantastic examples of spookiness. For number 3 though, I decided to go with the first Scarecrow mission from Arkham Asylum. This essentially boils down to your classic story of a detective who dresses like a bat being locked in an insane asylum with an eclectic variety of his enemies, before being led down an elevator shaft and being blasted with fear toxin. You know, just that classic story. What ensues is a psychedelic, nightmarish descent into hallucinogenic madness. This ranges all the way from bugs in the walls, ooh, so spooky, to walking out of a room just to enter the same room. Okay, pretty unsettling. We get dead parents and body bags. Jesus Christ. And then it all culminates in fighting a giant hyperbolic scarecrow in a platform minigame. Ooh, platform section in an action game. Spooky.
I know you're there.
At second place, I decided to go with Red Dead Redemption 2 and the mission A Fine Night for it. It's a side mission that becomes available at night near the Log Ra area after you've had your first interaction with the Nightfolk. It centers around a nice old man asking for help returning to his property after it was overrun with the silent swamp-dwelling psychos. He explains how they kill anyone they come into contact with and how freaky it is they don't talk while you slowly walk the lantern-lit path back to his house. On the way, you see some of the grisly murders, but this is really nothing new to Arthur Morgan. He's seen his fair share of the shit. Upon arriving at the man's abode, you're greeted as always with silence and machetes. Maybe you even died a few times. After fighting a few waves of the wordless monsters, you finally get your reward. Sunrise, and with it, an end to the night, and the horrifying Nightfolk. Last on our list, and hopefully the spookiest of all, for number 1 we have The Witcher 3, and the Ladies of the Wood. Yeah, we're going back to another swamp. Swamps are spooky. The mission sounds fairly straightforward to begin with, simply follow the trail of sweets to find the crones of Crookback Bog. The trail of sweets is marked by beautiful, brightly colored flowers and what appear to be little cookies winding inward towards the center of the dense woods. This is, I'm assuming, how the crones lure children to their small village. Upon further investigation, we find that the children are all orphans being taken care of by some poor old woman whose sole purpose is apparently to serve the crones. The woman doesn't want you asking questions about the ladies, or anything else for that matter. The children, however, are keen to play a game, and if you humor them, they tell you of a boy who lives by himself in the woods. His name is Johnny, and they're not allowed to play with him. In fact, they're told repeatedly that he doesn't even exist. Being the Witcher, a person who professionally hunts things, we hunt the thing, and find its burrow. When we do, he's sort of a freaky little critter, at least before he gets his voice back. Then he's just remarkably annoying.
Whiskey! Slither! Ringworm! Rubbish! Bumblebee! Flabbergasted! Ha! The sound of it!
Well, that kinda kills the Halloween vibes. Maybe this quest won't be so bad after all, and those crones don't look so scary. They just want me to kill some beast in the woods. Only the beast isn't a werewolf or a drowner, it's a spiny beating heart living in the base of a tree. Yeah, really horrible looking. Then some events transpire I intend not to spoil, and you either please the ladies or royally piss them off. Either way, you're treated to a short series section, and the best treat of all, you finally get to meet the beautiful ladies in person. Aren't they gorgeous? Don't the flies and intestines really bring out their eyes? Using anything from The Witcher in this sort of a list feels a bit like I'm cheating. It's not exactly a horror game, but the fantasy is dark enough that we really could have put any quest here, to be honest. And that's my whole list. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Did you agree with any of my choices? What are some creepy levels in games you've encountered? Please let me know in the comments. Liking the video also helps the channel quite a bit, as does subscribing to see more stuff like this in the future. Have a happy Halloween, and thanks again for watching.